It has been a little while since I've done a video talking about new and upcoming releases that excite me to no end, so I thought it was about time to do another one. I did a little bit of research and looked up highly anticipated books that are coming out in the near future, and I was actually shocked by the amount of books coming out that I hadn't heard of yet, especially because some of them are by pretty big authors and they just haven't been talked about, which could just be a me thing. Maybe I'm just not watching channels and TikTokers that are into the same books that I am. I'm not sure. But I was definitely surprised, to say the least, especially about the first book on this list. I hadn't heard about it until I just looked it up the other day. That is The Last King of Fairy, a Shadowhunters novel by Cassandra Clare. This comes out November 3rd of this year, and this one is super bittersweet because it is going to be the first book in the last trilogy that Cassandra Clare ever writes about the Shadowhunters. And those books were my life as a teenager. I loved them so much when I was 14 and 15 years old, and ever since then I've been reading them as they've come out, and I don't want it to end. I understand that all good things must come to an end. Some people think it should have ended years ago. Other people are like me, where I've just kind of been enjoying it, but unfortunately it's not the same when it's YA and you're an adult. Some of the stuff written in it just isn't meant for someone my age anymore. So I do think it was kind of getting to the point where I was gonna slowly fall off and stop reading them anyway. So this might be a good thing, but I am still very saddened by it and also excited. I am excited to see what happens next because Chain of Thorns ended on somewhat of a cliffhanger, and I've been waiting for a couple of years now for this book, and it's supposed to kind of continue on after that with characters who were in Chain of Thorns but not the main characters. So it's about time that we get the conclusion that we've been waiting for, but oh my goodness, I don't want it to end. I am very sad about it. Next, there is a new duology by Ali Hazelwood coming out in October 6th to be exact, and it is called Bound and Unbound, and it's supposed to be paranormal. But the really cool thing about these, so they're technically a duology of novellas, but it's bound in the same book, and so you start on one side, read that story, and then you flip the book and the next story is in the other half of the book. I think you actually fully flip the book and it's upside down on the other side. I don't know if I'm describing this properly, but it sounds like a really cool format. The cover initially is what really caught my eye because I was confused as to why there was two covers. I am the type of person who doesn't like to read too much into a synopsis because I've been spoiled and burned by that before, but I do know that these are supposed to be paranormal, dark academia romance, and that sounds like it's going to be such a good time. Now, I say that lightly, I guess, because I've only ever read one Ali Hazelwood. I've meant to read some of her other books. I just haven't got to it yet. There's too many books and not enough time. Nonetheless, this one is definitely still on my radar, as it sounds like it's going to be right up my alley, and it's just really cool. The format is super cool. Before that, on September 15th, Richard Osman is releasing another novel called We Chase Shadows. Now, this is a sequel in one of his newer series called We Solve Murders. I personally love the Thursday Murder Club. I think that is such a fun time, and I've heard equally good reviews about this series as well. I just haven't gotten into it yet. I didn't realize that he was already this far into this series as well. I'm actually shocked that I haven't heard more about it. I feel like the Thursday Murder Club has definitely got a lot more hype around it. Maybe that's because there's a TV show or a movie out for it now. I'm not sure if it's a TV show or a movie. It's being adapted into some sort of screen thing. But anyway, this series is kind of in the same vein as the Thursday Murder Club in that it is a group who are solving murders together. I think it's a really fun way to do murder mysteries. It makes it a lot more lighthearted, and it's interesting to see characters kind of bounce ideas and evidence off of each other. You get kind of their wit and their humor and a lot more personality than rather just being inside of one person's head. Very fun time, and I can't wait to finally read this one. I always like to compare Richard Osman's type of mysteries to Agatha Christie. Not so much in the writing style, but in the vibe, as it's kind of a whodunit, but it's not super dark and disturbing. It's very lighthearted. There's humor woven throughout the story, and then also it kind of has you scratching your head until the big reveal. And they're just fun reads. So if you are into murder mysteries like Agatha Christie's, I highly recommend giving Richard Osman a go. If you have never read one of his books, definitely start with the Thursday Murder Club though, because that's really the only one I can honestly review at this point. But like I said, I have heard really good things about this series as well. Then on September 22nd, there is a memoir by Taylor Tomlinson being released called Actually Nevermind. I actually pre-ordered this one because I was really excited about it. She is a very, very funny comedian. If you have never seen any of her stuff, again, I'm going to highly recommend you watch the Netflix special. because actually I think she has a few. Watch all of them. She's hilarious. She leaves nothing unsaid. She's sharp as a tack and definitely shares my type of sense of humor. So I really love all of her stuff, and I can only imagine how funny her book is going to be. As far as I know, this is just supposed to be a look into her life from the death of her mom at 34 to how that kind of shaped her as a person, and then relationship stories, mental health stories, what it's like being the eldest daughter, all that good stuff that you'd normally find in a comedian's memoir. I just know it's going to be hilarious and I can't wait for it. I also think this is probably going to be a really fun one to listen to the audiobook for, so hopefully she narrates it herself because that would be a hoot. Then there is another memoir coming out on October 27th of this year. Another one that I have also pre-ordered, and that is In My Own Time by Christopher Lloyd. If you don't know who Christopher Lloyd is, you need to learn. But anyway, he was Doc Brown in Back to the Future. He was also Fester Addams in the 90s movie adaptations of The Addams Family, which are my favorite movie adaptations of The Addams Family. I absolutely have loved them ever since I was a child, and they're movies I try to rewatch every year or every couple of years because I just love them so much, and they have that spooky Halloween nostalgia to me. But anyway, Christopher Lloyd is an amazing actor. He's very funny. And if you haven't seen any of his work, I highly recommend watching some of the movies he's been in because he's been in some iconic films. But he is 87 now, so the man has lived a life, and I can only imagine how interesting it's going to be to learn about it. Then we have another memoir coming out on November 3rd, and that is My Pressures by Andy Serkis. Again, this would be a really fun one to listen to the audiobook form for. I have a feeling that he's going to be narrating it himself because he narrates other books, so it's only fitting. Again, I think this one is going to be super interesting. Andy Serkis is a very well-known actor. Obviously, he was Gollum in The Lord of the Rings. I'm trying to think of other things that he was in, and I can't think of any right now, but I'm sure I'm going to be kicking myself later editing this and remembering different things. But anyway, he also narrated some audiobooks for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and he did an impeccable job, so I highly recommend checking those out. If you have not already, you definitely should. He's a very good narrator. Then this one is probably going to already be out by the time that I post this video, but on August 11th, Olive E. Blake is releasing another new book called Dreamland. I'm not entirely sure what this one is supposed to be about. I think it's supposed to be more on the spookier side than the romance side. She is known for doing both, so maybe it is both at the same time. I'm not really sure. But I do know that apparently it takes place in LA, and one of the paragraphs in the synopsis sounds really interesting. It says, "In this city, everyone cuts a deal with the devil. When Anya comes face to face with a devil of her own, she'll learn just how far she's willing to go to get everything she's ever wanted." Oh, okay. The headlines are calling it The Summer of Exsanguination? I hope I'm saying that correctly. In LA, girls are being murdered. The Santa Ana winds, I don't think I'm saying that properly either, are blowing a strange energy into the city, and all signs point to fire season. Yeah, I'm still not sure what this is about, but murder, LA, dark things. It's Olive E. Blake, so it's gonna be good. Then on September 29th, we are getting a novel by an author I've never read before, but I'm gonna be completely honest with you, the cover is what caught my eye for this one. It is called Heatstroke by Meredith Cole, and it's supposed to be for people who love reading Ottessa Moshfegh? I know I'm not saying that correctly. I'm having a bad few moments with pronouncing things apparently, but she is the author of La Pavona and My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which are both two very popular books. This one is supposed to be about a main character who starts to slowly go insane and apparently ends up making eye contact at one point with a telepathic bunny. It's kind of giving Mona Awad vibes too, which could be good. Sounds very weird, and I know a lot of people would not be into that. I find myself liking books that are really strange and have me scratching my head by the end of them. So I'm definitely looking forward to this one. Obviously, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I really need to know what the author is talking about when they say a telepathic bunny. Next is another fantasy book that is coming out November 3rd called Defy the Dusk by Danielle L. Jensen. Now, once again, I have to be honest with you, it was definitely the cover of this one that caught my eye. I've been kind of on a fantasy lull lately. It hasn't been a genre I've been gravitating towards simply because they tend to be very long and take a lot of brain power, and I don't have time or brain power. But this one claims to be set in a post-apocalyptic world, and it is the first book in a duology, so it might be safe. It is going to be about 700 pages, but only 2 books is not too bad for fantasy because a lot of the fantasy I've been seeing get really popular over the last few years is like 5 books or more, and I frankly don't have time for that right now. But a duology I think I could handle, and I do enjoy post-apocalyptic worlds. It sounds like it could really be interesting. I did read the synopsis, but I don't quite know how to explain this one. I have a hard enough time understanding fantasy myself. I don't want to try to explain it to anybody else, so if it looks like it could be interesting to you, I highly recommend looking up the synopsis for yourself, because I'm not even going to try to explain it. Next is a book that I know people who are very excited about, and I know a lot of people in the gaming community in particular are very excited about. I myself have never played the video game that goes with this book, so I'm excited for those people, and I thought it would be fun to mention it in this video, and that is Baldur's Gate 3 Astarion by T. Kingfisher, that's coming out September 29th of this year. Like I said, I've never played Baldur's Gate. It's not that I've never wanted to, I've just never really gotten into games like that. I will say, however, that the cover looks very beautiful, and one of my friends is really into Baldur's Gate and is super excited about this book, so I'm very happy for them. And who knows, maybe if I read this, it could get me into Baldur's Gate, and I could start playing that. I don't know. Would you want to read the book first or play the game first? That I'm not sure about, and I probably have to ask. What I do know about this book is it is supposed to be about a competition, with the prize being a favor from a vampire lord or something like that. I didn't even know Baldur's Gate had vampires, but it sounds super cool nonetheless. And then T. Kingfisher has definitely been busy because they have another book being released on August 25th called Daggerbound. This is a sequel to one of their books that just came out last year, I believe, called Swordheart, that I do have in my collection. I just have not got to yet, unfortunately. But it is supposed to be a fantasy novel, or I guess more of like a dark romantic fantasy. I don't want to go as far as to say romantasy because I think that would be misleading. I think it's fantasy with romance in it, but that's not the focal point. I could be wrong though. Again, I probably have no business being excited for this book or buying it, but I'm still going to because I know it's one that I am going to eventually get to, and I do love me some T. Kingfisher. And then the last book on this list of books that I am very excited about, I actually just saw earlier today, and I've never heard of it before, but the cover, once again, is what caught my eye, and the title, I guess, and it just sounds like one that would be right up my alley. It is coming out August 18th, and it is called The House That Eats the Dead by Max Doty. This is supposed to be basically your typical haunted house horror book, and I say that with love because I love a haunted house horror book. But by that I mean the main character moves into a new house, or rather an old new house or a new old house, and weird things start happening that can't be explained, and the house starts doing weird things. It sounds like it's going to be really fun, and I love horror novels like this, so I'm hoping that I'm going to love this author's writing style because they have apparently written quite a few horror novels that are in the same sort of vein, and I would love to find another horror author who writes these kind of novels that I'm really into. We'll have to see, but this is definitely one that I'm going to be keeping on my radar and looking out for reviews of before I purchase it. But that is it for this time. I feel like I could go on forever. I actually kind of cut down the list a little bit because I didn't want to talk for like an hour, but I definitely could. That's for darn sure. Again, I am super excited for all of these books to be released, even if I don't really have the right to be. I still am. And again, I have pre-ordered some, so there will be book hauls in the near future. But anyway, for now, I am going to leave this one here. I hope you have a great rest of your week and happy reading.